I think the first thing about the book is probably the title, because it's a sort of double title. So the book begins with a bit of etymology. So it talks about wild, which is an Old English word related to weald, which is forest, woodland. And it also mentions wilder, which is a word that is one we don't have now, but we have it in bewilderment. And to wilder meant to lose one's way. And funnily enough, the San Pedro cactus, the sort of traditional name for it actually means losing your head. So there are these two elements, I think, in the book. And though I call it wilder, it could easily be called wilder. I think there's that sort of shadow meaning there, and those two titles sort of coexist. And I suppose, you never really know what a book is about until you finish it, until you put all those poems together. So you write single poems, they need to be self-consistent and have their own discoveries. But it's when you put the poems together that you find out what it is that you've actually been saying in a way. And for me, that sort of discovery for the book was, I think that idea maybe that in order to be wilder or to be more authentic, it involves an element of getting lost. And that perhaps to never get lost is, never to live fully. I mean, where I live is it's a lovely area. It's very wooded, it's very green. It's an area of outstanding national beauty. I'm very lucky to be there. But, I grew up in the suburbs of London and really didn't have a lot of contact with the natural world, if you want to use that phrase, until I went to university, and I was a zoologist to start with. And so then, doing that meant that I then did have a huge amount of contact. And that sort of really defined, that period of life for me, because it was so other to how it had been. And so I think that idea of the natural world, and is it separate from us, or all of that sort of idea that, there's this, we are the humans, and then there's the non-human world. I think all of that just falls apart, because one of the things you realise is that, the variety of life into which we fit it's part of our identity. Gary Schneider says, the American poet, that, wildness is something you have to admit to yourself from within. So this idea of naturalness, I suppose, is, inherent to who we are as human beings. And being a scientist sort of really brought that out, I think, for me, because it gives you the long view as well. It gives you that idea that, realization that life has been on this planet for an, incredibly long time, and we're just the tip of the iceberg. Art is a conversation, and so I always like to take ideas and respond to them, and to think of art almost as an ecology. Everything's connected, and you're always working in response to what other people have done. And because I was a scientist originally, this is very much the same thing, which is you would never just talk about something without referring back to the origins of that idea and the developments of that idea. And I think art is the same idea, which is it's a conversation, and it's part of that humans being embedded in the human world with other humans and the non-human world. We are so interconnected. I think it's impossible to work without acknowledging that. Awards are strange things, really, because it's I always think we should be celebrating all the books that come out in a year, and there are all reasons to celebrate so many different ways of approaching poetry, and different forms and different voices, and sort of bringing in different languages and so on. So it's great for the book to be chosen, but there are so many wonderful books.